Hello and welcome to another extra here on Estuary TV. As usual, Tom Hardy is with me today to discuss all the football stories. In today's show, we hear from Steve Bruce again ahead of this weekend. We also have Grimsby match highlights, but first, Graham Taylor was in town. Here he is.
What are your most vivid memories of playing for Grimsby Town?
Losing 7-1 at Watford. Now I mention that because can you imagine when you end up the manager of Watford, that's all they can talk about when you first went down there, and that was some trip, because the manager at the time, Don McAvoy, actually he never mentioned, he didn't say anything, he didn't mention a word, he never said anything on the coach, he didn't say, and when we arrived back at Blundell Park, he stood up in the front of the coach and said, "Right, you lot, I'll see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow," being the Sunday. Oh, well, what is happening? So he came in at 10 o'clock the Sunday, he got us out onto the pitch, and he said, "When I blow my whistle, I want you to start running around the pitch. When I blow my whistle for the second time, you'll stop." He blew his whistle, we ran, and we ran for 45 minutes before he blew, which was the first half. And then he gave us the 10 minutes, as half time was in those days, not 15. He gave us the 10-minute rest. And then he started to blow, he blew his whistle again for the second half. And I'll always remember him, because I can imagine how he felt after that performance. And he was in the sense, and he shouted at us, and I have to be very careful here because it was strong language. "Won't run for me on a Saturday, me on a Sunday," which is what it is. I remember that so clearly. That was our reward for losing 7-1. I was never going to sign for Scunthorpe because my father was the local sports reporter for the Scunthorpe Evening Telegraph. And you're not going to be in any position, are you, if you're playing and he's reporting on the game. You know, if he reports well about you, it's only because you're his son. If he reports badly about you, then what sort of father is he? So I was never going to sign for my hometown.
Do you still follow the fortunes of your local club?
I watch them. I watch them. I mean, I see, and the object is both Grimsby and Lincoln get out of the conference. This I know doesn't sound very well, because the longer you stay in the conference, the more you'll be forgotten, and the more you'll become a conference club. And one of the difficulties of being in the conference is the Premier League, or whatever money comes in, does not filter down. As far as I'm aware, it does not filter down into the conference. So it's hard work. And you've got to be, the longer you'll stay in the conference, the more you'll be forgotten. And that is my view. I don't mean to be unkind, because it is there, and you can get back into the league out of the conference.
That's the former Grimsby Town defender and former England manager there speaking to on the bench in midweek. It's great to see him amongst local football. Let's crack on. Let's look at the latest set of results then. Hull weren't in action at the weekend, so the last game was that 2-0 defeat at Southampton. Scunthorpe drew 1-1 with Bradford City on Tuesday, with Gary McSheffrey scoring for the Iron from Hakeeb Adelakan's cross. They now require 1 point in their 2 remaining games to guarantee League One football next season. Sean Pearson's headed equaliser for Grimsby made it 2-2 and cemented third place in the Vanarama Conference after Jordan Chappell's first strike for the Mariners gave them the lead. Southport bounced back before Pearson's late goal. Tom Denton scored a hat-trick for North Ferriby as they won 3-2 at Guiseley. It was the villagers' first victory since their FA Trophy triumph at Wembley. So Hardy, we'll start with Scunthorpe United. Obviously Hull not playing, we can look at their next fixture later on in the show, but we'll talk about Scunthorpe United first. That 1-1 draw. Now, I saw it at 1-0 Scunthorpe, and at that point, that they were safe.
Yeah.
It wasn't to be. It was 1-1. So what does that mean for their season now?
Well, it makes it, obviously, they only need, I believe, a point now from the final 2 games. So they are pretty much safe. And I think Mike Robbins said in his post-match interview, he says we're sort of stumbling over. We're just about there now. Obviously, it still could change, and Scunthorpe could finish as just about mid-table depending on results. So League One has been so tight all season. It's been a really strange league.
We said before the show, if they win these 2 remaining games, they could still be about 6 points off the playoffs. Or something ridiculous like that.
It's really, really tight, and obviously we've talked about in previous shows how tight League One has been, and there were points where Scunthorpe were looking either at relegation or even the playoffs. So Scunthorpe's season obviously coming to an end now. They need to get some decent results in the final 2 games, but as we both said, I believe, in previous weeks, we didn't think they'd get relegated.
Yeah, we'll look at North Ferriby before Grimsby, because North Ferriby, of course, won their first game since the FA Trophy final. Now that was nearly a month ago now. That seems quite a lot, but I think it's only the four games played since. So, but that's a big win nonetheless, really.
It was a huge win. The thing was, it was against a good Guiseley side as well, who have, I believe, cemented a playoff spot in the league anyway. So to go there for obviously to Tom Denton to get a hat-trick as well is
Do you think
massive.
that's why they got the win? Because Guiseley, they've got that playoff place. Did they feel the weakened team? Did they take the foot off the gas, which allowed North Ferriby to get that win?
Well, yeah, perhaps so. And we've seen it with Grimsby, the results that they've been getting, sort of, knowing that they've got the playoffs coming up. Yeah, and the safety's there, they're already there. So maybe that was the case. And but I think Guiseley fielded quite a strong team. So to go there, get a 3-2 win, is definitely finishing the season on a high.
And as far as North Ferriby are concerned, it's just a mid-table finish. Grimsby Town then, as we know, third place looks theirs. It has been for a couple of weeks, I think, despite those results. So what now for the Mariners? What rest of the season? How does it look?
Well, obviously 1 game remaining. I personally think they need to go out and try and get a win in that game. I think they need to go into the playoffs on the back of a victory. They certainly don't want a loss. Now, all the shots the last game they've got, obviously we'll talk about it later on in the show, but they've got nothing to play for. So I think Grimsby just need a bit of, as we said the word last week, continuity. If it was me personally, I would be fielding a first team to go into the playoffs with a bit of confidence.
You asked me that question last week. How do you manage these players now? Do you take Disley out? Do you keep him in for the form? Pearson, do you rest Pearson because he might get a goal in the playoffs? He could be important for that. You obviously can't rest McEwen. Your strikers, do you rotate them?
It's a risk, and it's certainly a bit of a tactical, dilemma for the manager, really, because what do you do?
It could alter his formations as well.
Exactly, and the thing is, you can't really. It's sort of a lose-lose situation. You play some of the first-team players, and if someone takes a knock or is injured for a game, then the fans are angry. If you field a weakened team and you don't win, the fans are also angry. So it's not a nice situation for a manager.
It's difficult. Talking of Grimsby Town then, they had the result 2-2 against Southport. We'll now look at the highlights from that game.
Scott Brown comes deep. 1 through the middle, it's a great ball. Palmer tried the little back heel. Pittman is in, and Pittman puts it over the top. Couldn't quite get over it. Palmer's there, McLaughlin's in there. There's a nice little run there made. That Brown. Oh yes, it's going to be the first goal. Chappell has stolen in. Well, it was a good ball lobbed into the back post. I think that's Jordan Chappell who came in on it. We lost the markers. Scott Brown very influential in there. Lobbed the ball on. And there's Chappell. First goal. Opening goal. Town go 1-0 in front. Brown under pressure, he will be here. Good play though. Got it away to Clay. Chappell again, wide, hugging the line. That's a good little overlap there by Parslow. In comes across, it's deep to the back post. 2 men looking for it. It's not away yet. Oh, into the chest. It was McLaughlin with the effort. Thompson knew nothing about it. Straight into his chest. James McEwen. Up goes Pittman. Palmer gets in. Over the top. Whether or not we can take advantage here and get a few goals on the to trouble the scorers is another thing, to trouble the stats is another thing, but here comes Southport straight at us. This is a good break and a great goal, a magnificent goal. Well, we let him get away. Louis Armand, what a fabulous goal, absolutely rifled in. Well, there's me saying that we're in control. Straight back at us, long range again. Another great effort. Marvellous strike, this time by Charlie Joyce. Good delivery. McEwen comes a long way, it's going to be 2. McEwen can only palm it away, he lost it. And the man in there is Luke Foster. Well, it's falling apart here for Grimsby. Yeah. That's not a bad looking corner. Pearson! What a good header by Pearson. Right on the button. Scott Brown, deep looping corner, right onto the edge of the 6-yard area. And Pearson got in there unmarked, right into the back of the net. 2-2.
A 2-2 draw there against Southport. Hardy, what do you think to that result?
Disappointing result. I think that's 7 games without a win against Southport now, so a bit of a bogey team for Grimsby.
Yes, thank you. Now let's go to another challenge. It's another week, so let's see what Greg has in store this week. Curtis Davis, James Chester, Andy Dawson, El Mohammadi, Ricketts, McShane, Guzan, Livermore, Huddleston, Mailer, Daniel Kusan, Sagbo, Kalovich. Oh, that was tough there. 3 answers. That's quite poor, I think.
Hard work.
Do you think you'll beat that?
Don't know, I'll have to see.
We'll find out in part 2. So this week's half-time teaser then is which former Scunthorpe defender scored in both league games against Gillingham in the 05-06 season and the 06-07 season. We'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to Extra. Now, Richard Hines was the man who scored in all 4 league games against Gillingham for Scunthorpe in the 05-06 and 06-07 season. If you can remember that, well done. Still to come in the show, we hear from Steve Bruce. We discuss Grimsby's potential playoff opponents. But first, here's Hardy's part of this week's head-to-head.
Myhill, McShane, Chester, Turner, Dawson, Giovanni. No, who else we got? Corran, Rosinia, Quinn.
Just the 3 there, Hardy. Does that make it a draw this week?
Definitely a draw, yeah, point each.
That's all right, I'll take that. I'll take that. Right, let's move on now. Let's hear from Steve Bruce ahead of this weekend's game against Crystal Palace.
2 weeks since the last game. How tough has it been watching other sides pick up points, and how have you managed the players during that?
Well, I've said repeatedly, you know, if we thought 28 points was going to be enough to stay in the division, then we're far mistaken. And I've said repeatedly that there's a certain level of points you have to get to, whether it's 34, 35, 36. What I do know is that we still need a couple of results. So it doesn't really matter what teams do around you. You've got to really get the points on the board if you possibly can. And no doubt at all, we could do with a result to get us starting again. When we've got 6 games to play, we've got 4 of them after tomorrow. 4 out of 5 are going to be at home. I think that's critical, even though they are pretty, as we know, tough fixtures. But home form has been decent since the turn of the year. So let's hope that can be the turning point for us.
At the bottom of the table, it's very tight. Is it now 3 from 5 to go down, or could
Well, it looks
Newcastle get broken?
35, it looks as if you would expect Newcastle to get results. You would expect it not to continue. So I think you're quite right in what you say there. I think 30. I think the 5 teams are in it now. A couple of weeks ago there was 6 or 7 or 8, and it was terrific when there were so many involved. So I think it's between the 5 clubs that are at the bottom, and we've got to make sure we're not one of the 3 that unfortunately slips out of the league.
What have you made of Crystal Palace under Alan Pardew? Because it's been quite a turnaround.
Well, when you see what he's done at Newcastle, and when you see what he's done at Crystal Palace, he's done a smashing job. And in the wide areas, they've got attacking players, and Glenn Murray seems to have found a new lease of life, coming back from being at loan at Reading and scoring 8 goals in the last 9 games or whatever. It's been terrific, but I think a big pat on the back deserves to go to Alan and his predecessor Tony, who've turned Palace round in the last 18 months, because 18 months ago we thought they were a goner, but they've had a remarkable 12 months under Tony, and now Alan's picked it up, and you can always say to them, well done.
Those are the thoughts of Steve Bruce there ahead of this weekend's game against Crystal Palace. Turning our attention now to the Vanarama Conference, we'll look at Grimsby's potential playoff opponents, Eastleigh, Forest Green or Macclesfield Hardy. Now, I'll ask you this question, quite simple. Who would you rather face as a player?
That's not an easy one to answer, is it? We said about it last week, and we said, at the end of the day, you have to beat the best team anyway.
Yes.
Because you get to the final and you could face a Bristol Rovers or someone like that.
Or a Barnet, either or.
Or a Barnet, yeah, depending on who's going to win at the top of the league. In terms of those 3 teams, now Eastleigh have the second top scorers in the league. So they've scored 85 goals, but they've also conceded 60.
So a goal difference of plus 25 there.
Yeah, they're not particularly good in terms of their defending, but obviously attacking-wise they're great. Forest Green have scored 80, which is the 3rd highest in the league. Now Macclesfield don't score a massive amount, but they've conceded the 3rd lowest in the league. So what do you take from that? Stat-wise, you wouldn't want to face any of them.
They're quite even, really, I think.
Yeah, well, Eastleigh and Forest Green are good at attacking, and Macclesfield are good at defending. So, what would you prefer to face as a Grimsby player? I think, obviously, you've got some stats based on Grimsby previous results.
Yeah, just so we don't upset Greg too much with your own stats. We've got Greg's stats as well. This is Grimsby's results against all these teams. So this season against Eastleigh, they've won home and away. So if you look at that, 6 points, you'd face Eastleigh.
Yeah.
Forest Green. Now, they beat them at home, but lost away, so only 3 points there from Forest Green. But Macclesfield, again, they won away, but lost at home. So only the 1 win there, but they've beat Eastleigh twice. So on that stat, you'd face Eastleigh, surely. Yeah,
well, I think they're all beatable. I just, it depends on the day and things as well. It depends what team turns up on the day. I think, based on the stats that you said, obviously, they'd prefer Eastleigh. They've shown that they can beat them away and at home. But I think if they get any of them, if Grimsby are on their game, I think that they're capable of beating any of those 3 teams.
I think the main stat is there that Grimsby have beaten these sides at least once this season.
I think that's a positive, and I think they've got to take that into it, whoever they face, because if it was a team that they'd lost to both home and away...
And conceded quite a few as well.
Yeah, then you're worrying a little bit more, and you're panicking and thinking, these are a strong team.
Do you think Barnet are thinking about that? Because, for example, Bristol Rovers win the league on the last day of the season, Barnet are then in the playoffs, potential finalists... Grimsby are going into that game thinking we'll beat Barnet twice.
Yeah,
well, I think the opposite.
Slightly controversial. I still think Bristol Rovers are going to nick it.
I think Bristol Rovers will win the league as well.
I think it's going to be a very eventful last day of the season in terms of the top of the league, and also the battle for the playoffs as well. Obviously, Grimsby can't move anywhere. They've guaranteed 3rd place. So for them, their last game is just to get a bit of momentum.
Yeah, how important is that last result really? Because is it a nothing game, or does it mean everything?
Well, as I said earlier, I still think it's important, because I don't think you can go into the playoffs on the back of a defeat. No disrespect to Aldershot, but they're not one of the stronger teams in the league. They're the sort of team that Grimsby should be comfortably beating at home. There's no question about it. As I said, Aldershot have got nothing to play for either. So, although there's not actually a great deal to play for in the game, Grimsby should be wanting to win it and go into the playoffs on good form.
Form, I think, is crucial as well, like you say. So you would play Disley, you'd play Linnell, you'd play Pearson.
I personally would, yes, and that's for the fact of, like we said earlier, to give those players, hopefully, a bit of a winning
confidence
sort
boost.
of winning confidence.
Thank you, Hardy. So we'll move on. We'll look at the remaining fixtures this weekend coming up for our local sides. Hull face Crystal Palace, looking for maximum points with Leicester's results picking up recently. The Tigers last won this fixture 2-0 in October 1985, 30 years ago. Scunthorpe host Gillingham at Glanford Park, knowing that a point will be enough to stay up. Manager Matt Robbins will hope they can have this secured and not drag it out into the last game of the season. Grimsby finished their regular season at home to Aldershot before they turn their attention to the playoffs. With their opponents yet to be decided, fans will be eagerly awaiting the results elsewhere. And North Ferriby wrap up their season at Church Road against Bradford Park Avenue. They won the last time they hosted, winning 2-1 in December 2013, with a Danny Hone and Anthony Wilson scoring in those games. So Hardy, we'll talk about Hull because they've got a game this weekend. They're not in Mexico on some training camp. You know, they're in action. They're working, so to speak. So you know, Crystal Palace this is probably a big game for Hull really because they're just outside that relegation zone.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at the remaining fixtures as well, although Crystal Palace, Selhurst Park is a horrible place to go to, you've seen the Crystal Palace fans and how passionate they are and how much they get behind the side.
We've also talked about Hull's other fixtures, so you target this one as 3 points.
I think you have to look at this fixture based on the other ones that they've got. This has to be one of the ones where they think we could sneak 3 points there. Now, it's not going to be easy, as I just said, because Selhurst Park is a horrible place to go to. But I think they've got to look at this Crystal Palace game and think we could possibly get 3 points here. Go into it with a positive attitude. And I think, although it's easy to say they need to attack because they're at the bottom of the league and they could go down, they need to...
Is that risky? Do you stick to your twist?
I think they need to play some more free-flowing, attacking football. Now, the Hull fans are probably going to absolutely murder me, but I think they need to go into it with that sort of attitude because you look at the other games, they're not expected to get anything. You can defend for your lives against Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs and Man U. Why not go into the Crystal Palace game and think, you know what, if we attack from the off, give them a little bit of a fright, then see what happens.
On the flip side, though, Palace have got big results this season. So do they think if we attack too much, we're opening ourselves up here for a 3 or 4-0 defeat?
It's true, and Palace's strengths this season seem to be on the wings. Bolassi's on a great run of form at the moment. Punchin's a very good player.
Pardew's had a massive part to play in that as well.
He definitely has, yeah. They've got a solid team, and I think the spine of their team's also pretty good. Speroni, a good keeper. You know, they've got a good side.
Yeah, they'll be fine, I would think. Well, we don't know. Palace are fine.
Palace are fine, yeah, Palace are fine. Hull aren't.
No, let's look at Scunthorpe, another side who maybe aren't fine, but we said they probably are fine. They're playing Gillingham. It's a home game.
Yeah, Gillingham are probably overperforming this season if you look at where they are in the league. So, you know, it's not an easy game by any means. And then the other game after that is Doncaster away, which we talked about last week, obviously big derby and all those sorts of things. And they didn't want to be relying on that game to be getting points.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like that's going to be the case now. I can see Scunthorpe getting a result against Gillingham. I can see a draw or a win.
Some points coming in though.
Yeah, and then obviously that would secure it for definite. Mathematically, they would then be safe.
And we spoke about Grimsby Aldershot earlier, so I'll just take a prediction for you for that game. Grimsby Aldershot, what do you think?
I'm going to go 3-1 Grimsby.
I'll say
bold.
2-0 Grimsby. Yeah. So we'll just end with Ferriby quickly playing Bradford Park Avenue. Their season's coming to an end. They're not a relegation. They're not promotion candidates, but result from that game.
Last game of the season, I will go with 2-1 Ferriby for that one. I'll go with Denton score another couple.
I'm going to go for a thriller, 3-3.
Wow.
Just to see 6 goals. Thank you, Hardy.
Cheers, Reidy.
That's all we've got time for this week. So as I say, thank you to Tom Hardy for your input this week.
Thank you.
We're both back next week, of course, Saturday, 10 a.m. here on Estuary TV. You can watch On the Bench on Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock. This week it's Rachel Chadwick. Smiley faces all round with Rachel. And don't forget we are on social media as well. Facebook, Twitter or email. Get in touch with the show and we can read some of your tweets out next week. So from all of us here and Tom Hardy, it's goodbye.